The first time a package disappeared from my porch, I brushed it off as bad luck. Maybe the delivery driver left it at the wrong house. Maybe someone passing by made a poor decision. Maybe the world was just unfair that day. But when the second and third went missing within a week, my suspicion shifted into certainty. This wasn't bad luck. This was theft, and it was deliberate. The sting wasn't just the money I had lost, it was the violation. The knowledge that someone was watching my house, waiting for the moment I wasn't there. And I knew exactly who it was. The Karen sisters. 2 women who lived 3 doors down, notorious in our HOA-controlled neighborhood for their arrogance and entitlement. One was short and heavy-set, the other taller but no less imposing, both with dyed hair and sharp voices that seemed to scrape the paint off walls. They acted like the cul-de-sac was their personal kingdom, handing out verbal fines, criticizing anyone who parked too close to the curb, even marching into yards to measure lawn height. People avoided them because arguing only fed their fire. But I had noticed something else too. Every time a package of mine went missing, I'd catch a glimpse of one of them waddling down the street carrying a suspicious-looking box, always with that smug expression like they were untouchable. Came to a head one Friday afternoon. I'd ordered a set of tools I desperately needed for work, tracked the delivery down to the exact minute, and rushed home only to find the package gone within 10 minutes of being marked delivered. As I stood on my porch, fists clenched, I saw them, the sisters, standing by their driveway, laughing and whispering as one of them carried a brown box half hidden under her sweater. My blood boiled. I confronted them, shouting across the street, "That's mine! Give it back!" The shorter one smirked and called out, "Prove it! Packages don't belong to anyone until they're inside the house." The taller one added, "Maybe if you didn't order so much junk, people wouldn't confuse it with community deliveries." Then they both burst into shrill laughter, turning their backs and disappearing into their house. I was left standing there, shaking with anger, neighbors peeking from behind blinds but saying nothing. That night, I decided enough was enough. If they wanted to steal, then I'd give them something worth stealing. I called up a friend of mine who worked in pest control and asked if he could help me with a little project. By morning, I had a sturdy box sealed tight with air holes and filled with several large, angry rats he'd captured in traps. They scratched and clawed inside, their squeaks muffled but menacing. I wrapped the box in fresh tape, slapped a fake shipping label on it, and placed it neatly on my porch with my security camera aimed directly at it. Then I waited. It didn't take long. By mid-afternoon, the sisters appeared together, strutting down the sidewalk like hyenas closing in on prey. They whispered to each other, glanced around, then snatched the box and scurried back toward their home, giggling like schoolgirls pulling a prank. My camera caught every second. What happened next was pure justice. Barely 10 minutes later, the sound of screaming ripped through the air, so loud it made dogs bark up and down the block. I stepped outside just in time to see the sisters burst through their front door, flailing wildly, their arms covered in scratches, their hair disheveled. The taller one was shrieking, "They're everywhere! They're in the kitchen!" while the shorter one danced in place, slapping at her own body as if the rats were still climbing her legs. And then perfectly on cue, one of the rats darted out of their house, scampering down the driveway while neighbors gasped and clutched their mouths. People came running out to watch, phones raised to record. The sisters screamed at everyone, "He planted this. He's trying to kill us," pointing at me with wild eyes. I didn't even need to defend myself. I simply held up my phone, replaying the footage of them stealing the package off my porch, smiling like it was their prize. The crowd erupted in murmurs, laughter, and finally cheers. The sisters' faces turned crimson as they realized they weren't the victims. They were the thieves caught red-handed and humiliated in front of everyone. But the story didn't stop there. Just as the chaos reached its peak, an unexpected twist emerged. A delivery driver, who had been watching from the corner, stepped forward. He revealed he had filed multiple complaints to the HOA about package thefts on this street, but the reports had always mysteriously vanished. He suspected the sisters had friends on the board covering for them. The crowd gasped. The HOA had ignored our complaints, enabling the thieves because of their connections. Suddenly, the theft wasn't just about might, it was about the whole community being manipulated and silenced. Neighbors who had stayed quiet for years found their voices. One shouted, "They stole my medication last month." Another added, "My daughter's birthday present never commit was you too." Accusations poured in like a flood, and the sisters tried to backpedal, shouting that it was all lies, that everyone was conspiring against them. But the footage on my phone, the rats running wild from their house, and the testimonies piling up left no room for their excuses. The police arrived soon after, summoned by the commotion. When the officers saw the videos and heard the witnesses, they moved quickly. The sisters were taken aside, questioned, and finally led into the back of a cruiser as the neighborhood erupted in cheers. For the first time, they looked small, pathetic, and powerless. That night, I uploaded the footage online. Within hours, it went viral. Karen's sister's steel box of rats became the headline that lit up feeds across the country. People laughed, shared, and commented with disbelief and satisfaction. The sisters, once feared and despised locally, became a nationwide punchline, and for the first time in years, our neighborhood felt free. I sat on my porch late into the evening, watching the lights flicker in houses where laughter replaced whispers. The sisters had tried to humiliate me, to rob me of peace, but instead they had exposed themselves to the world. Justice didn't come in a courtroom that day, it came in the form of squeaking rats and the courage to turn the tables. And so I ask you, was it poetic justice to fight their theft with humiliation, or should I have chosen a different path? Did they deserve the box of rats, or was that a step too far? The morning after their arrest, the neighborhood was alive with a sense of electricity. Like storm clouds had finally split and the air was clear. People who had tiptoed around the Karen sisters for years were now talking openly, gathering in driveways, waving at me when they passed, even laughing in ways I hadn't heard in a long time. But beneath the laughter was anger, too anger at how much we had allowed ourselves to be controlled. Anger at the HOA that had shielded them, and anger at ourselves for being too afraid to speak. The sisters posted bail quickly, and within days they were back, strutting around the cul-de-sac like they still owned it. Their eyes burned holes into me whenever I stepped outside. They hissed insults under their breath, loud enough for others to hear. "Rat man," one sneered. "Vigilante loser," the other spat. They weren't just humiliated, they were furious. And like all cornered predators, they were more dangerous now. But what they didn't understand was that the community had changed. Their return didn't inspire fear. It inspired defiance. One evening, a group of neighbors knocked on my door. Mr. Alvarez, who had lost heart medication to the sisters' theft, spoke first. "We want to organize, not an HOA like theirs, but something real. A neighborhood watch, maybe. We can't let them think they're still in charge." I agreed instantly, and within days, what started as whispered conversations became official. A dozen families signed up to rotate porch cameras, take turns monitoring deliveries, and document everything. The sisters tried to counterattack. They filed complaints with the HOA demanding I be fined for endangering the neighborhood with vermin. They staged dramatic scenes in the street, pretending to faint when they saw me, wailing about how unsafe they felt. But this time, no one believed them. Their audience had turned against them, and they were left screaming into silence. The turning point came at the next HOA board meeting. Normally sparsely attended, this one overflowed, with neighbors crammed into folding chairs, their voices loud and angry. The sisters sat smugly in the front row, whispering into the ears of the board president, clearly confident that their influence still held weight. But then the delivery driver who had exposed their connections stood up with a folder of evidence. He revealed that dozens of complaints about package theft, harassment, and trespassing had been submitted and systematically deleted. His logs matched the dates of known incidents. The only explanation was board-level corruption. Gasps rippled through the room. And then, like dominoes falling, neighbors rose one after another, recounting their stories. A veteran missing his VA packages. A single mom whose child's medical supplies never arrived. An elderly woman who had been fined into silence when she accused the sisters of trespassing. Every story stacked higher, crushing the sisters' smirks until they vanished altogether. The board tried to defend itself, but the pressure was overwhelming. Reporters had slipped into the back of the room, cameras rolling. Under the weight of exposure, the board president resigned on the spot, his face pale with shame. The county soon announced a full investigation into the HOA's finances, suspecting fraud, collusion, and misuse of funds. The sisters panicked. For years they had leaned on the HOA like a shield, and now that shield was crumbling. Their strategy shifted from arrogance to desperation. They approached neighbors privately, offering apologies wrapped in excuses. "We didn't mean any harm," they said. "It was just packages. We were under stress." But no one bought it. Forgiveness wasn't theirs to demand. The real downfall came when Emily, a teenage neighbor, uploaded a compilation of footage to social media. It showed the sisters stealing package after package, strutting away like villains in a bad comedy. Spliced against the moment the rats spilled from the box and they screamed into the street. The video hit 1 million views in days. News anchors laughed as they played the clip. Late-night comedians cracked jokes. The Rat Queens of Suburbia became their nickname. They weren't just infamous locally, they were humiliated nationally. When their trial began, they walked into the courthouse with heads bowed, no longer the queens of anything. The charges were straightforward: theft, trespassing, harassment, false reports. The evidence was overwhelming, the testimonies damning. Their defense crumbled quickly, and they were found guilty. The judge sentenced them to probation, fines, and community service, ordering them to repay thousands in stolen goods. But the punishment went beyond legal terms. Their reputations were obliterated. They couldn't walk into a grocery store without whispers following them. They couldn't apply for jobs without the viral video appearing first. They couldn't even walk their street without neighbors turning their backs. Their empire of fear had collapsed into an empire of ridicule. Meanwhile, the neighborhood thrived. The dissolved HOA was replaced with a simple, voluntary committee focused on actual community needs: fixing sidewalks, planning block parties, helping the elderly with yard work. Trust bloomed where fear had once lived. On weekends, children drew chalk murals on the sidewalks the sisters once patrolled. Gardens blossomed in colors once forbidden, and packages stayed right where they were delivered. As for me, I never stopped being asked about the rats. Some people laughed, some called it poetic justice, some shook their heads. But whenever I was asked if I regretted it, I thought about the moment those sisters tore out of their house screaming, their theft exposed, their arrogance shattered. And I answered honestly, no. They had stolen from everyone, abused power, and relied on silence. The rats weren't just punishment, they were a wake-up call. One night, as I sat on my porch watching the stars, neighbors gathered around, talking, laughing, living freely again. I realized the true victory wasn't the humiliation of the sisters, or even the collapse of the HOA. The true victory was this community restored. People standing together, fear replaced by courage. The sisters thought they could steal packages forever, but what they really stole was their own future. And now I ask you, was it fair to use humiliation to expose them, or did I go too far with the box of rats? Was their downfall justice, or do you believe they deserved even more?